In this example, we're going to look at the task of creating object patterns using the array tool. So before we dive into our example, what I'll do is I'll just take you through the interface briefly. If I create just a very simple box here momentarily, and I wish to create an array from that, or an object pattern. So I'll do that using my array tool. So I'll click on that and up comes my array dialog box. Now the reason why there's a dialog box for this, and it's not just on a right click menu, is as you can see there's quite a few options. Okay, now the first thing to note is that on the right hand side we've got a little preview of what we're going to get as our set of objects. So at the moment we have a rectangular array with 4 rows and 4 columns. See, 4 rows, 4 columns. If I change that to 3, and then I'll click over here, you'll see that my preview changes. And the other thing that I've got here is a polar array. So if I click polar array, you can see that's what a polar array is. It's around a circle. Okay. So I'll go to my rectangular array and I'll select my object, which is this one here. Just left click and right click to stop selecting. And I've got a row offset and a column offset. Now at the moment this is 1mm, so that's way too small. So I'm going to actually set that to 50 and 50, and I'm going to make this a lot smaller. I'm going to make this a 3x3 array, and I'm going to preview it. So in actual fact that 50x50 hasn't quite been enough, has it? That's because I didn't really pay attention to the size of the box that I was making. So okay, I'll press escape and that will bring me back to my array tool. Remember, I was just previewing that, I hadn't accepted it yet. So maybe I'll make this 75x75. And I'll preview that. And there we go. So that all looks lovely. So I'll escape. And I'm fairly sure that that's what I want. That size. I can also change the angle of the array. So I could put that at a 45-degree angle. Just preview that. There you go. It creates a completely different look and shape to our array. Or I can bring that back down to 0. There you go. And I pressed enter then, and enter actually accepted that. So now what I've got are lots of separate entities which are all the same size and that make up a pattern here. So we'll just select those and we'll delete them quickly. And I'll make another rectangle. There we go, and I'll come back to my array tool here and I'll select polar array, and you see I've got no objects selected, so I shall select my objects just by left clicking and then right clicking. See, one object selected, and I need to specify the center point of my rotation because at the moment I've got some they're just la numbers here. So I will pick the center point of my rotation by starting in the midpoint of that line and scanning down by about 75 units. I'm also going to make 6 total items in my array. You see them previewed there. And they're all going to fill 360 degrees. So I could make those fill 180 degrees if I wanted to. And I could also turn them to not follow the rotation. So they could be in a semicircle, but not quite in a semicircle, if you follow me. They're not following the line. So 360 there. Oh, and there we go. Now you do have to be careful. You notice with that I pressed enter thinking that I was just going to enable the value, when in actual fact I selected the whole thing. So now my only recourse is to undo that and come back and go into my array tool. My polar array tool there. And just have a look at some of the other options that I've got here. Now I've got the total items and angle to fill. I've also got total number of items and angle between items. So if I have made this 30, for example, what would happen is they'd all bunch up on one side. If I've made it 90, they'd all just, it's going to be a whole circle, so there's going to be 4 items, so we're losing some items in here. So you can do it that way. You can also do angle to fill an angle between items. So the angle to fill might well be 360, and the angle between items might be 25 degrees, in which case we've got a lot of these boxes here. For me, the number of items and the angle to fill is generally about the only one I really want to be playing with. Again, my center point, I'll just pick somewhere as my center point. There we go. And you'll notice here as well, I've also got a few more options here. I've got the more or less options. And I've got an object's default and its base point, which I've actually already selected up here. Yeah. So we've got set to objects default. Well, actually, that was here, and I didn't want that because that's the object's default center point. It's not going to work for me. So I'll just preview this quickly. There we go. There's my array, and it really is as simple as that to use as a tool. So now that we've had a look at our quick example there. Oh, yeah, sorry, that was a preview. Yeah, so I'll okay that. So now that we've looked at our sort of how it works, right, there's a couple of other things in there I want to look at, but really we'll talk about those in a moment. Let's get down to making a quick and simple polar array of this chair, shall we? So I'll bring up my array dialog. We're still set in polar. So I will select the chair to be the object. I'll select its center point as being this table here. There we go. I'm going to say 8 chairs around 360 degrees. That should work. Let's do a preview. I think that works. So what I'm going to do is just press enter. Okay. You saw that my array tool flashed up and then it went away again. And that's actually set the size of that array. So that's good. That's that one done. Now, these two are going to be a little bit trickier. Okay. What we're going to have to do, we're going to have to mirror almost. And I'm going to right click and go to my zoom so I can get exactly the right size here. And what I'm looking for is to be able to see that tiny corner in there and that tiny corner in there. Okay, actually I might be able to do this through a different way. It might be, yeah, I might use these endpoints here. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'll escape out of that and I'll say array. It's going to be a rectangular array. Oh, now hang on a minute. It's going to have 1, 2 columns and 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Okay, so go back to our array tool. Rectangular. 2 columns, 4 rows. Yeah, that's it. Selected objects. I'm going to select all of those and all of those. Right click, I can stop selecting those. Now what I need to do is I need to pick my row and column offset. Okay, now up until now I just typed some numbers in, but I can actually pick them. Okay, so I'm going to pick them one at a time rather than one after the other because that would just be disastrous. So my column offset is going to go from that corner there all the way over to that corner there. See, that worked. And now my row offset is going to go from, again, same point here all the way up to there. And let's just do a preview to hopefully that's worked. Yes, it has. Apart from the fact that I only did 3 rows. Okay, something's gone wrong there, so I'll press escape. Oh yes, look, there we go. That should have been a 4. Silly me, but that's what the preview's there for. Preview, let's have a look, come back. Yeah, that's it. Brilliant. So what we've actually created there is not just a pattern, but it's actually been very useful because we've been able to populate all these cubes in this Office cube farm very quickly, very simply and easily, without sort of having to put too much effort into it. And that's really what I like about this tool. So I'll press enter there just to accept that. And you can see we've populated the boardroom with 8 chairs all the way around it. And we've also populated this cube farm as well with all of the tables and desks and chairs.